What's up, everyone? All right, so today I took a break from the small account challenge and I'm going to break down the trades I took in my main account. If you watched my recap yesterday, you know that I blew up my small account in the best possible way. Yesterday, I came in with about 25,000 in the account, just under, and we had two stocks that both put out private placement crypto treasury strategy catalysts. I traded both of them and locked up over $34,000 in profit. The account has now skyrocketed from less than $2,000 to over $58,000 in 6 days. Wow. So it's safe to say it's no longer a small account challenge. Now, when I began the challenge, I had two goals. The first was to demonstrate for you step by step what it looks like for a seasoned trader such as myself to trade in a small account. And the second goal was to raise money for charity. And so all of the profit from the small account challenge is going to charity, as I had already said. And I gave you guys the opportunity to help me double that donation because every time you guys hit the thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, I was going to add an extra dollar. So yesterday, I was so fortunate and so excited to be able to donate $120,000. $60,000 went on my American Express to St. Jude's Children's Hospital and to the Boston Children's Hospital. Those are donations that I just made yesterday. Another $60,000 I donated right here in the local community. One is to an organization that runs food pantries in this entire part of the state, the whole western side of the state. And then the second organization is focused on revitalizing downtowns and creating kind of a template of a program that you can run during the summers to help generate economic activity in small town rural America. And I think this is really awesome what they're doing. And our local town here has been a case study of how well it has, how effective these strategies have been. So this was really the goal of the small account challenge: demonstrate for you what it looks like to trade in a small account and to donate some money for charity. But today I'm wiring all of that money out of the account. I got to pay off my American Express bill, and I'm going to reset the account back down to $2,000. So for the next leg of the challenge, my question for you is, are there things you'd like to see me do differently than what I did on days 1 through 6? And if you have any feedback or any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll look those over and take that into consideration. So today, while the account is sort of in this in-between period of wiring money out and resetting it, I decided I would just trade in my main account. And so this morning, we sort of had a continuation of big momentum, for example, on the stock IBG, but without a catalyst. If you recall yesterday, our biggest move of the day and the one that held up the best was this Chinese stock, BQ, that went up nearly 400% with no news. Kind of confusing. Our big moves in the last month have all been stocks that have put out these private placement headlines where the money's to be used to create a crypto treasury strategy, which is essentially buying cryptocurrency and putting it on the balance sheet. So I was surprised that the two stocks that both had that catalyst yesterday performed similarly to CWD. If you remember, CWD back on September 9th put out a headline about the crypto treasury strategy, and the stock went from less than $2 a share all the way up to nearly $50. And then by the end of the day, it had given back all of that profit. Came all the way back down, all those gains. And it's ended up having a bunch of red days in a row, which is a little bit confusing. In fact, we've seen this happen a couple times. So if we go back even to the beginning of the year, or earlier in the year, SBET, this one made this really big move back in May, for instance. And then we had BMNR, which made a pretty big move. This one was back in June. But in between these big moves, we saw a couple, actually not just a couple, we saw a number of stocks that seemed to be jumping on the bandwagon of doing a crypto treasury strategy, and the stock would pop up and then immediately reverse. And sometimes they would end up even going red on the day after this headline. I think the combination of people that got in too high stopping out and short sellers pushing it down would actually drive the price lower, which was obviously not the intention of the company. They were trying to jump on the bandwagon of this hot theme right now, and then their stock goes lower. So essentially, a catalyst that was working really well, creating huge moves, sort of created smaller and smaller and smaller moves until eventually they were going red. And it stopped working. Until we had another one that we didn't think would work, and then all of a sudden goes up 3,000%. And boom, we get the next cycle of this headline working and the theme working. So we're back into it. We're back on it. And now we've seen it sort of be a little hit or miss, because we've had some stocks that have had the crypto treasury strategy and they've gone up, 10x from $5 to $50 a share. But then like CWD, they end up fading all the way back down. And then there's others that have been holding up. And that's been the trick, is trying to figure out what's the difference between the ones that are holding up and the ones that are failing. So what I suspect is happening, although I'm not certain, is that there are some of these companies that are being used by, well-respected and sophisticated institutional investors, and they're giving these companies, let's say $100 million to invest in cryptocurrency. And that institutional trading company, that firm, is not selling the shares that they get. So the way a private placement works is the institution gives the company money, and the company gives the institutional traders the shares of the company. And so now the institutional trader could sell all those shares. And when the stock goes up 500% in one day, they're up more on that than they'd be up on the Bitcoin treasury strategy. So you could argue maybe they should just sell. And some of them are. But others are saying, no, we're holding this for the long term. We're not thinking about this little volatility here and there. And in any case, to buy 100 million shares or to buy $100 million worth of shares, we have so many shares that we wouldn't be able to easily sell them anyway. So we're just going to hold the whole thing. And so in those cases, the institutional traders are there for the long haul, and the stock does not roll over because you don't have all this selling. But in other cases, some of the investors are being a little bit more, aggressive, and they're thinking, look, we're up 500%, 1,000% in one day. That's far more than we would have made on the cryptocurrency. Let's just dump it all. And so here you're getting 120 plus million shares of volume, and it's just selling, selling, selling. And so who ends up getting caught holding the bag in these cases? I feel like retail traders. And that doesn't feel super fair. It's kind of like when a biotech company puts out great news of a clinical trial and the stock goes up 300%, and then an hour later they announce a secondary offering and the stock comes all the way back down. So nonetheless, it's been a little challenging to know when we see the headline first hit, is this going to be the headline that gives us that sustained momentum and the stock continues to hold? Or is this going to be another one like CWD? So yesterday we had MSS, which popped up and then it rolled over. And this is despite a $70 million private placement. So you wouldn't really think that this would have rolled over like that. This is a lot of money that they now have on their balance sheet, unless, the people that got the shares in exchange for that decide to sell. So as I looked a little bit deeper into this, I thought, it would be nice if they, dropped the name of, the investors that, took that stake. Are they notable people? Are there people, that we would be familiar with? I mean, obviously, if you had an Elon Musk or something like that, that'd be incredibly significant. And they would definitely put that in the headline. So the fact that it's not in the headline kind of makes you wonder. And then you're thinking, well, what's the price that they got the shares at? And so on the surface, this stuff is not apparent. POAI is another stock yesterday that made a big move, and then all of a sudden today they do a reverse split, which is really funny because typically they do the reverse split, then the news comes out. So it's like, I don't even know what is going on here with this one. This is very unusual. But again, this one has this $344 million private placement. That one's even bigger. It's a huge private placement. And so we could see here, this was the purchase and sale of 66 million shares at 77 cents a share. So now all of a sudden, so you've got that, and then they've got 223 million shares of common stock, purchase price equal to the offering price minus 1 penny per pre-funded warrant in exchange. So now you're starting to realize that, when this stock, because the price was at 75 cents, all of a sudden these guys are killing it when the stock is up $2-3 a share. So yesterday it peaked at $4, $66 million a share, times 4. I mean, but it's more than that because it's the warrants. 77 cents. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. That was almost $1 billion of unrealized gain right there. And that's more than they would have made on the underlying asset, of which was to buy the cryptocurrency. So did they sell? We don't know. There wasn't In total, there was only 50 million shares of volume. So there wasn't enough volume to have allowed that institution to sell all of those shares. Could they have sold some? We don't know the answer to that question. So at this point, I'm feeling a little confused because, on Friday, on the other hand, we had, was it JFB or JB? No, I can't remember what it was. It was JFB. This is the stock that had a private placement on Friday, and it goes up 300%. And it's still holding, at $11 a share, right? So this is a better example. And yet this one wasn't to be used for cryptocurrency, which kind of threw me off. So private placements can work really well, but maybe we're getting to a point where the crypto theme is getting worn out again, and we've got to wait for the next one that actually holds up. And this is going to be really confusing for a lot of traders. Short sellers are going to think, I'm just going to short every single one of these crypto treasury headlines because they pop up and I'm going to keep adding and adding and adding, and then I'm going to wait for it to roll over. And you can see that that's been working on a few of these moves. And then they're going to just keep doing it, and then they're going to do it, and all of a sudden they're not going to realize, in the fine print here, it's going to say that, the institutional trader is affiliated with someone really big and respectable. And then next thing you know, that person's going on CNBC and they're talking about how they just did this private placement with this company, and all of a sudden it's going up 500%, 800%, 1,000%, 2,000%, and it's just ramping higher, and now shorts are getting completely destroyed. And long bias traders are maybe also feeling confused because they're like, wait, all of a sudden this one works and the other ones didn't? So it's going to force us to dig a little bit deeper. Now, typically, I'm all about trading the price action that's right in front of me. And, if we've got something that's moving quickly, it's squeezing higher, I'm going to buy the dips and I'm going to trade that. But on the other hand, we had this morning, let's see, what was the ticker? Was it IBG? Yeah, maybe it was IBG. IBG pops up this morning and I thought, it doesn't have news. Can I really trust it? And so it pops up here, it makes this big move, and then it comes all the way back down. And then it sort of rallies back up. And yes, it did give us pullbacks, but I just thought, how much is this really going to be able to go up without news? And so I had a little bit of a bias and I didn't end up trading. I just said, no, I just don't think this is going to work. So I was waiting for something with news. And so SLXN was the first one that popped up with news. And look at this chart. This one actually had news. It's a biotech stock right here. It's got the news demonstrating up to 99.7% inhibition in the first evidence of gastric cancer. So seems like a good headline, right? And what do? The stock pops up, it dips down. I buy this first dip right down here, and we get this squeeze up here, and I lock up about $5,000. And then it couldn't hold over 5 right here. Topping tail went back below 5, comes back up again, another topping tail, and it drops down. It ends up giving back all of the gains, in spite of what seems like pretty good news. So now I'm really thrown off. I'm thinking, well, good news isn't working. No news is working. Crypto treasury headlines aren't working. What do we have in store for us for tomorrow? And I'm not sure. It's kind of funny because we're at the end of the month, and so now going into October, what's going to be the theme for the new month? I'm not sure yet. But of course, I'll break the ice and trade things that are moving quickly, as SLXN was. I would consider, maybe I should consider no news stocks if they seem to be holding up. I suppose the thing with a stock that has no news is that, in a way, the upside could be almost anything because it's unknown. Doesn't even make sense that it's going high. So sometimes you have a headline, maybe a clinical trial or something, you might think, well, I've seen this headline before, so I'm going to sort of taper what the upside could be, or it's a private placement. Well, it's a private placement, but the total dollar amount's only $20 million. It's not going to go as much as these other ones, so you taper expectations. But when something's going up with no news whatsoever, what could it do? I don't know. It's got no news. I mean, it shouldn't be doing anything, but it's already doing this. So I guess we can't underestimate it. Maybe this is the one that goes up and just keeps going higher. So maybe that'll be the move for a couple of days. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, I'll be focusing on the scanners, watching the stocks that are popping up, looking for pullbacks, and trying not to form too much of a bias if something is moving and looks good. And we'll be back at the small account challenge once the account is set up again, back at $2,000. So again, leave your comments on what you think I should do for the next leg of the small account challenge. Always curious to hear that. And I'll be back at it live streaming bright and early tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern. By the way, if you haven't already started a 2-week trial at Warrior Trading, during the trial, you'll be able to watch over my shoulder as I'm beginning this next leg of the small account challenge. So I think you guys will really enjoy that. Reminder, as always, trading is risky. My results aren't typical, and there's no guarantee you'll find success whether you trade with me or you learn on your own. So please take it slow, manage your risk, and always trade in a simulator before putting real money on the line. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning.